Hi, I'm Alexis Billings, and I am presenting my Strand project for Education 323. So, the first part of my Strand project is identifying my standards. For the national standards for grades 3 through 5, expectations in grades 3 through 5, each and every student should model problem situations with objects and use representations such as graphs, tables, and equations to draw conclusions. For my Common Core standard, that is Math Content 6EE A.2, which is write, read, and evaluate expressions in which letters stand for numbers. And my SOL is 5.19C, which is to use an expression with a variable to represent a given verbal operation or a given verbal expression involving one operation. So the first part of my project is my foldable, and let me take that out. So my lesson is Halloween themed. It just worked out with the different activities that I was planning, and so my note-taking guide is a pumpkin guide. These two are definition terms, and then on the inside of the flap is their definition. And these two are examples from the guided practice. This one is from below grade level, this one is on grade level, but I think that they serve to be good examples for students to have written down. And the answers are written inside the flap. So the student would fill it out and then have their little pumpkin sheet to go along with their notes. My next section is the tiered activities. So for these, I was continuing with the Halloween theme. When you see my lesson plan with the book, you'll understand. But for now, so for on-grade level students, they will be designing a graveyard based on teacher instruction, and the students will write mathematical expressions that are conveyed through the verbal expressions and in their drawings. So some examples of the teacher instructions are, there are 10 tombstones in the graveyard. There are S number of skeletons, more than there are tombstones. So students would write an expression with that. They could add S and T, or S and 10. They could even do a greater than or less than situation with that too. And so for the below grade level students, the students below grade level will play a matching game. They'll have cards with expressions, 15 cards with math expressions, and 15 cards with verbal expressions on them. The students will then lay all of the cards on the floor or table and match the mathematical and verbal expressions. And so these are right here. Some examples are the number of ghosts and 12 pumpkins, so G plus 12, or 8 widows and an unknown number of widowers, so 8 plus W. So that one's pretty self-explanatory. I wanted the students to be able to do these on their own. And then for the students above grade level, this was my favorite. They're going to design a haunted house, and they will draw a cross-section of a house, and then they can fill their home with any number of spooky things or just regular things if they really wanted to. And once they draw that picture, they're going to create a math expression to talk about the things seen in the house. So for this example, that's the little cross-section of the house. But for this, so they could draw their little house and then say 17 minus G is the number of living people minus the unknown number of ghosts. So just something fun and creative. I want to give the students as much creative output as I can. So next is my folder game. And it's a pretty straightforward game. These are just the little spaces that they move. And students will get these cards that have verbal expressions on them, and the student will have to create a math expression to go with it. And if they get it right, they get to roll and move their spaces. If they get it wrong, then it's the next player's turn. It's really designed for 2 people because it's a small board, because I wanted to make kind of a risk-free environment, I suppose, where students aren't super self-conscious about their math abilities. I wanted them to be able to have fun with it too. So next are my integrated activities. For science, the students are divided into groups based on skill level, and they are going to be working with SOL 5.4, which is about elements and atoms in the periodic table. And so students would be in their groups. I have a downward arrow for below, upward for above, and a line for on grade level. And so students would get this little booklet, and it's got the elements, and they have to list the number of protons, neutrons, and electrons. And then from those numbers, they can create mathematical expressions. So protons and neutrons, how many, the sum of protons and neutrons. So just something really simple. So P plus 17 or whatever. That way they're being exposed to science as well as the math concept. Next is my social studies activity. For this one, I'm focusing on US 1.2. 5th grade is no longer the 5 points. When you get to history, it's US history at this point. So students have to know some of the lakes and rivers that were influential in the colonization of America. So students will get a blank map and draw out these rivers. And then they will go online and research the length, depth, and width of the rivers. And from that, they'll again create more mathematical expressions. The reason I keep using real numbers so they would know all of those numbers is because I want the students to associate variables as being representatives of a number, not just some letter thrown in there for kicks and giggles. Okay, my lesson plan. So for my lesson, we're using the book Mystery Math, a first book of algebra. It's a Halloween themed book, and it really introduces a lot of initial algebraic concepts that I think really tie in with the variables that we're doing. So we read that. We start by coming in and the room's dark and we've got scary music playing and just kind of setting the mood. And then from there, students have the guided practice with a single expression, and then independent practice on grade. They're listening to audio recordings of verbal expressions and writing down the mathematical. Below grade level, they get 10 apples in a closed box with a certain amount of apples in there. They have to write the expression, and then they can open it up, and again making that connection between variables being real numbers versus variables just willy-nilly. So next are my assessment, and that's actually my last section. So assessments, for formative, I have an exit ticket just on how students feel about how they understand the concept. Just to really guide me in knowing how much more I need to cover it. If they're feeling good, smiley face. If they're kind of in the middle, question mark. And if they're not doing so hot, it's a frowny face. I just really wanted to know, I think it's important to know where your students are and where they feel comfortable. My next assessment is a pop quiz, and it just has definition of variable, expression, and then they have to write a mathematical expression given a verbal expression. And my unit test is 15 questions. It's a combination of multiple choice and short answer. The two first questions are, again, defining variable and expression. I think those are really important terms to know. And then just the same, given a verbal expression, they will write a mathematical one or pick from the multiple choice of the mathematical expressions. And that is my unit plan, and I'm really excited to share it with you, and I hope that you like it just as much as I do. Thank you.